At the tail end of the 80s and going well into the 90s, Batman seemed to be back and better than ever, and really stood out in the public consciousness, especially with kids, like 90s kids. I'm a 90s kid, so I was big on Batman. Of course, he's still popular today, but I mean, it was this kind of era that really ushered him into just this mega popularity. And of course, we got the four live action theatrically released Batman films, which I reviewed previously. But also in the 90s, there was another theatrical release, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which came out in 1993. It's an offshoot of the animated series, which debuted a year prior, I think, 1992. So it's almost, I'd say, impossible to talk about this movie without talking about the animated series program as well, which was a huge favorite of mine. I mean, I loved it. It was kind of this mind blowing thing, this dark and serious, action packed Batman program with great animation and such interesting stories and really unique takes on the characters that you know we hadn't quite seen before in other iterations, maybe other than the comics, but even with say characters such as like the Mr. Freeze character, they added on him very nicely and introduced characters like Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn became uh, a popular character through that show, so it was a hugely influential show. And this movie, to my understanding, it was originally meant to be like a direct to video kind of release, but I guess they had enough faith in it, enough faith in the scope and scale of the story to give it a shot on the big screen. So this was, as far as I know, the first animated Batman film to be released theatrically, and I mean, guess I guess sort of really the only one to get such a release. Like, I mean, unless you count like the Lego Batman movie, which is not so much a straight Batman movie, more kind of like a spoof and more of a Lego brand kind of movie, I guess. And I know some of the more recent DC Universe animated films have had limited theatrical releases, but this was a big theatrical release, a full force, worldwide theatrical release. So it was a big event, and it was something for fans of the show to further experience what that style could be capable of. And for me personally, the funny thing, I was aware of this movie coming out at the time. Like, it was pretty fairly heavily advertised. I do remember seeing ads for it and promotions for it and stuff like that. I never saw it in theaters. I think I rented it or borrowed it from a friend at some point and watched it and enjoyed it. But for whatever reason, it just never really. It was never the kind of movie like, as opposed to the live action films. Let's say it wasn't something that I just watched over and over and over and could basically memorize front to back. So I don't have as much of a nostalgic view on it as I do those movies. But of course, since then, I have seen it quite a few times. At some point, I got it on DVD, and just recently I rewatched it, and it definitely is a great movie. I mean, what a lot of people will say is that it's kind of like the best Batman movie, really, like theatrical release Batman movie, the most faithful to the character, to the tone of everything. It's still held in a very high regard in what it was able to accomplish and how it both captured what was good about the series, but in doing it in a bigger way. Like, it's obviously it has a bigger budget. The animation is a little bit more elaborate. Action scenes more in depth than in this series. We see like right at the very beginning, there's this kind of like CGI Gotham City, and the big orchestral music is booming and all that, and it's a higher production value version of the television show, and really like in a pre Batman Begins kind of world, this was really the only incarnation of like a Batman origin story. Because what it kind of does, it sort of takes some inspiration from the comic books, the year one storyline, and I think some of year two as well, where what this movie does, there's basically two different, I don't know, timelines going on in the movie that all kind of come together in telling this story. Like, we first have a story set in the present where there is this new villain in Gotham, this Phantasm, who a lot of the criminals mistake for Batman, but something's not quite right, because this caped specter is killing criminals, and obviously that's not something Batman does, and there's a mystery behind what exactly the motivations behind these particular killings are with this villain. And it's Batman investigating that, taking a look into that. But what it also does in a series of flashbacks, it does go back to his first venture into becoming Batman and deciding to take on this life. And what sort of happens is that right as this is happening, he meets this woman, Andrea, and unexpectedly, unintentionally, he begins to fall in love with her, and it shows a lot of their relationship, and how for the first time in Bruce Wayne's life, he's beginning to feel happiness after the death of his parents, where before that, he's all doom and gloom and just razor sharp focused on this goal of becoming Batman. But in developing this relationship, he kind of questions if he could put that aside, if he could, just like there's a scene where he's like at his parents' grave and he's like, I didn't expect this. I didn't mean to be this happy. I can give money to organizations, to the police. Maybe I can just do this. All this stuff. So there's a real dramatic conflict there, and so that's what we see in the flashbacks and with that relationship and with his outings as Batman and or proto Batman, basically, with like a ski mask and stopping criminals, like robbing warehouses and all that kind of stuff. So that's in the past, but things, of course, as we learn, it didn't work out between him and Andrea, and as the flashbacks kind of progress, we understand what's kind of happening. Like, she has her father, who's kind of in bad with the mob, and we're wondering, if she's gonna just get up and leave and stuff like that. But she's come back to Gotham, and now, of course, he's well into his years as Batman, and seeing her again is making him remember all this stuff, and he's also dealing with the Phantasm character, and of course there's twists and turns along the way. I'm sure everyone kind of knows the twists, but I'll just leave that be for now. But in this Phantasm plot, in the mob kind of fearing for their lives now, one particular mobster who's voiced by Abe Vigoda, actually. He's worried, that the Phantasm, or Batman, he thinks it's Batman, is going to come and get him. So he kind of has to make a pact with the devil, and he recruits the help of the Joker. So the Joker gets involved, and it all kind of amounts to a big showdown with Batman and the Joker, and of course this new villain in Phantasm, and all the secrets that are unveiled, and what he confronts there. And It's all very big and dramatic and great. Uh, so I mean, it definitely has like a bigger scale than what we're used to in the episodic adventures of Batman. Like even like with the show, it did a lot of like 2-part episodes, but this is much a grander kind of story that they're trying to tell, and I think it does it really well, and I think it explores the origin of Batman very well, and really, I mean, more than any of any of the live action movies, really, it it's so successful in showing the romantic side of the character and his relationship with Andrea. So I mean, like, we've had Kim Basinger, the Vicky Vale, that was fine. The Catwoman character, Chase Meridian, I also really liked. Even in like the Nolan ones with the Katie Holmes character, uh, who's later Maggie Gyllenhaal. Um, those are fine, but for some reason, it was just, I don't know, done with more focus and sincerity with this film, where we could really kind of understand that this woman in this relationship could make him want to take a different path in life. So that's intriguing. It's an intriguing angle to the character that's that is different than just who's this new foe that he's going to face off against, who's this new enemy, this big threat or whatever. The threat of Batman, and I think most people would agree that the most interesting conflict is that from within with Batman. That's what makes him kind of an interesting character, an intriguing figure in fiction. And of course, I mean, as he does it in the television show, Kevin Conroy is worthy of the highest of praises in his depiction of the character. I mean, there's good reason why there's still so much demand for him to reprise the role whenever possible. Like and we have seen that, of course. We've seen the Arkham video games that he's done, and the Killing Joke fairly recently. He just has this great understanding of the character. Like his voice alone is just really, really good. Like, and he does a very convincing, switching between the Batman voice and the Bruce Wayne voice. And the Batman voice is very deep and dramatic, and when he does Bruce Wayne, it's kind of a little bit more, sly and higher in tone. So, you could like close your eyes and just listen to the film or the animated series, and you can tell exactly when he's in Batman mode and in Bruce Wayne mode. So it's a terrific balancing in those two aspects of the character, and he does have a great understanding of this character and what makes it work. And what this film allows is much more than the television show. The more dramatic kind of angles to the character, the anguish that he feels, like that one scene at at his parents' gravestone where he's making his pleas and all of that. It's a really well done dramatic scene, and that can only come from such a seasoned understanding of the character. So I can't commend Kevin Conroy enough. He's just absolutely fantastic, and I a favorite among Batman fans for good reason. And I know a lot of people will say it, and I'll say it too. Actually, like if I'm like reading a Batman comic book, it'll always kind of be his voice in my head, not Michael Keaton, not uh, Christian Bale. It's always that Kevin Conroy voice that's in my head when I think of the Batman voice. So he's in a lot of ways he is the definitive Batman. So high praise to him, and high praise to Mark Hamill as well in a supporting role as the Joker, and of course he also plays the Joker on the animated series. A wonderful, wonderful rendition of this Joker. His laugh is just one of the absolute best. Like the way he's able to belt out the Joker guffaws is just awe inspiring. Like this is the same guy who's Luke Skywalker. It's unbelievable what he, like, the places he takes his voice is quite amazing, I think. And there is such a joy that you hear right in his voice, the joy of evil and chaos and just insanity of the Joker, and it's very funny. Like he really nails it. He's great, and you know, in the same way as Conroy's been to men. You know, he's kind of the as the Joker is. He's the yin to Kevin Conroy's yang. So we always kind of want to see these two paired up together, as we do in the Arkham games and in the Killing Joke. So when any project gets those two together as Batman and the Joker, it's quite magical. And there's good good scenes between them, though. I mean, there has to be a little bit of a more focus on the Phantasm a little bit, but Joker definitely gets some good time in this movie for sure. And there's, you know, kind of a an amusing face off in the end where they're at this the world of the future exhibition kind of thing, and they're running through these scaled down models of a city, and it's almost like a, you know, like a Godzilla movie. And so it's kind of this bizarre imagery of Batman and the Joker fighting amidst a cityscape, basically, and it's really well done. And I mean, like the movie in what it you know, does with the content. I mean, we see stuff a little bit edgier than what we would see in the television show. Like, you know, Batman, he knocks out Joker's tooth, and we, you know, see him bleeding a little bit. And unlike in the show, there's villains who actually die. You know, so that's not something they really get away with in a kids show, but they go for it here, and they're allowed to. And I guess this was a PG movie. I don't think it was PG-13, but a PG movie. So it's just a little more allowances that it partakes in, but it doesn't. You know, it has a good formula with the show. It has a good style, a good tone that's very familiar from the television show. So it sticks with that. You know, it works fine there. It's just a little bit different in this one, and it stays very true to the tone of the television show. So, as someone who loves the show, I mean, obviously this movie delivers. You know, while I definitely respect and understand those who would say, like, this is you know, the best Batman movie. Maybe I personally wouldn't agree with it. Maybe, like, because I don't know, with the Batman movies, especially ones from the '90s, there's always going to be that nostalgia factor. Since I don't quite have it with this one, I'm not quite as in love with this movie as maybe some other people are. Though, I mean, I think it's a great movie. I think it's a very well done rendition of Batman, and an exceptionally told Batman story. But yeah, I don't know, maybe not, you know, my favorite Batman movie. I still, you know, I still like the Burton movies. I like the Nolan movies too. But I mean, this one definitely has place among mention with them. It is kind of a unique thing where, you know, this was an offshoot of a animated series, and it made its way into theaters just because, you know, they had enough faith in it. They had enough faith that this material was worth bringing to as wide of an audience as possible with the best kind of exhibition as possible. So it's remained kind of a classic in its own right, and something that's, I would say, pretty essential for Batman fans. I mean, even if, say, you know, maybe you're an older Batman fan and maybe you missed out on the television series, I'd still encourage you to check it out because it's a great series. But let's say you're not interested in that, I'd say at least watch this movie. It's kind of, I don't know, it's an ambassador to the television series. It gives you an idea of what it has to offer, and what it has to offer is quite a bit. So it's something special, I think. So that's my review. Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Kind of right in the middle between the Burton films in '89 and '92. This one came out in '93, and then Batman Forever '95, Batman and Robin '97. So kind of right between the two. So it's funny how this is less cartoony than the Schumacher films, isn't it? But what can you do? Uh, Strange how that works out. But anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, I'll see you later.